Okay, I see we have a quorum at the moment. We're still missing Nancy Delcomen, whom I was expecting to be here this evening.
I think she'll be here.
Yeah. But we did not expect Roger Diggs. So I will proceed and call this regular meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners to order. And note that we are in remote attendance pursuant to Illinois Public Act 101-0640 with a public health emergency still in effect as declared by the governor. The first item of business for us today is to deal with the agenda. There has been a suggestion to move the first item from new business up to following public comment. Is there a motion to amend the agenda in that fashion? I think, Cedric, you're muted. I didn't hear it.
All right. I move to adjust the order of the agenda to move new business item A to after public comment.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. And under the rules of remote attendance, it requires a roll call vote on this point, and doing this in reverse seniority order. Cedric?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
You were Meredith, okay, and I vote in the affirmative as well, so that carries unanimously 3-0. I see that Nancy Delcomen is in the process of coming in to the meeting. Oh, there she is. Okay, so let's move now to public comment. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to address the board this evening?
No one reporting here at Planning and Operations, Michael, or via email.
Okay, then it appears there is no one from the public here specifically to make comment in the public comment portion of our meeting. The item under public comment is Park District new staff introductions, and we have a couple of those tonight. So I will turn that up.
I'll kick us off if that's okay, Michael.
Sure.
I am very excited to announce that we've hired our development manager for the Urbana Park District. The role serves for a fundraising role for both the Park District and the foundation. They kind of split the duties, and the person we've hired is named Jeremy Thorpe, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, talk to you a little bit about his background, and let you know how his first week has gone.
Thank you, Katie. Again, my name is Jeremy Thorpe. I'm actually from Champaign here. I'm relocating, coming back from Indianapolis after working for the Indianapolis Colts for the last 3 years. Also worked at the University of Illinois in the athletic department in sales for football and basketball for several years after getting my master's degree from the University of Illinois in recreation, sports, and tourism. Worked a lot in sales, as well as working with our corporate sponsorship team, some of our community events and community relations. So I've got some good ideas. I'm excited to be on board and get things moving, being in sort of the middle of the campaign that we're in and then moving forward. So the first week, today, I guess, was 1 week. It's been exciting, and I got to meet several people, just kind of getting acclimated and ready to really dive in and get things moving forward. Looking forward to meeting everyone, and very open to ideas. A big thing that I'd like to do is, figure out how I can help assist in any way, and kind of make this position, what I'd like it to be, and shape it to really assist others and be just a big part of the team.
Great.
Well, welcome, Jeremy. It's great to see you coming on board here.
Yes, indeed.
I guess next up, I'll have Matt, who we introduced last month. He's our new community program coordinator. He has a intern this summer, and he's going to introduce him.
Yeah, for sure. I can kind of let him introduce himself a little bit more, and he can kind of talk a little bit more about what he wants to look for in his internship while at the Urbana Park District. But yeah, I have a community programs intern. His name is Joshua Katz. He is a U of I graduate with a bachelor's in RST. I believe he's from the Chicagoland, and he was down here for school, and he's doing his internship with us. I know he has a focus in sports, and he's really acclimated with working with kids. He's done summer camps in the past for, I believe, 7 years. You might correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I'll let him kind of introduce himself a little bit more if he wants to talk a little bit more about himself.
Yeah, hi guys. As Matt described me very well, I'm from Buffalo Grove, Illinois, which is kind of like the North Shore suburbs of Chicago. I decided to come to Illinois because I fell in love with the recreation sport and tourism major, which I recently just graduated from. I'm actually thinking about going to grad school as well through RST, so I'm very excited about that as well. And through this internship, I've hoped to gain more leadership through how I work with children. As Matt described, I've worked with children for over 7 years through various summer camps. And I'm really looking forward to furthering that goal of mine.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're really
welcome
happy to
indeed.
have him.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, great to see two new faces here, ready to join the broader team.
I
And
do believe that's it for us tonight, Michael, on introductions.
okay, thank you very much. That takes us on then with the modified agenda. That takes us on to item A under new business, which is discussion of recognition opportunities for the Blair Park tennis courts. And I think there are a number of people here who are prepared to speak to that.
Yes, Michael, I'll start us out. I invited Nancy Trump to join us tonight, specifically to address the board on a project we've been working on for, gosh, it was pre-pandemic, I think, when we first started meeting. We started gathering to talk about changes at Blair Park. We knew we were going to update the master plan there and number of items that would go forward to be improved. We obviously followed up with an OSLAD grant to basically to redo the park. One of the areas in the park that's of great interest, I know, to the Trump family is the tennis facility at Blair. It's our main tennis facility in Urbana. It's had quite a history. It is the home site for Urbana High School to use that for boys and girls tennis. In the 70s and the 80s were probably the big heyday times of the Park District with the tennis open. But it's still very popular today. And as we look at improvements, a whole complete tennis court rebuild was not in the scope with the OSLAD grant. And so we began talking with Nancy and her family about opportunities. They had indicated some interest in maybe helping raise funds that could go to the tennis court improvements. So we kind of separated out what we could do at the Park District and what they could do. And I think they were very interested in recognizing at least one individual as well as donors. Nancy will probably give a little more background on that when she speaks. But staff had a very favorable outcome. I think they're very earnest. We have not really done this, at least during my time at the Park District, where we sought out and worked with a group for a specific need, like a sports facility in one of our parks. And so I invited Nancy to come and talk about what they're doing and the recognition part. We kind of had some pre-discussion about naming the tennis facility, and it got a little more complicated, obviously, cost and what public expectations on a naming. So as we continue to talk, it was really more about recognition and making sure that there was something at least mentioned and notable about this individual. Again, I'll let Nancy talk a little about that. So with that, I just wanted to give a little background. I think our staff position is very favorable to what they're trying to do. And I think we all know in our fundraising efforts across the district, there aren't guarantees. You have to put your whole heart and soul into it. You have to be willing to work, communicate, outreach, and do a lot of follow-up. And, their small group is willing to do that. So I thought the best thing to probably get clarity and, get some board understanding of what they're trying to do is just to invite Nancy to come and talk with us. So with that, I'll pause and turn it over to you, Nancy. You wanted to update us.
All right, thanks. And I appreciate getting moved up on the agenda. I figured I'd be here for a while. So not that I won't stay around, but anyway. I'm Nancy Schrumpf, and I'm a Urbana Parks Foundation trustee. And as Tim said, it was over a year ago that we kind of hatched this idea of trying to raise some funds for the tennis courts because they were not included in the grant. Our goal is to raise $160,000, which will resurface the 4 lighted courts at Blair Park. If we don't reach that goal, the funds will still be used for tennis court renovations. There's really a rich history of youth learning to play tennis at Blair and continuing on to the UHS tennis team. And that includes David Foster Wallace. He learned to play tennis. He actually taught tennis lessons at Blair Park. He was an outstanding UHS tennis team member. When I was growing up, Blair Park was really a gathering place. It was always nurturing and welcoming. There were women's leagues in the morning. There were lessons during the day. It was the era of starting the competitive tournament. Youths would gather at night to play tennis. I don't know if you read the article on the front page of the News Gazette today about the UHS tennis program, recognizing one of the fathers of the tennis players who had passed. And it really said better than what I'm trying to say tonight at what it means to the families and youth to have Blair Park and the tennis courts. Especially during the pandemic, those tennis courts were absolutely packed last spring and summer. So this is a grassroots effort to bring together these past decades in hopes that they're still connected to Blair Park. The majority of people we're contacting are across the country. So we're really reaching out. There's a generation that grew up at Blair Park who now live across the country. There's a strong core of people who played and taught tennis at Blair with David Foster Wallace, and many, many others that know his outstanding literary career, including his writings about tennis. He was one of the most influential writers of the century who had a love for tennis that we really want to recognize. Again, we're gathering grassroots effort. As we contact one person, they're giving us 2 or 3 more names. We really think that the recognition of David Foster Wallace will be inspirational for patrons, educational too, and it will be beneficial to the park. Donations now, and I think it's going to be planting the seeds for a lot of future generations. Again, just like the people in the paper this morning. We're mainly targeting past tennis alums across the country and some locally. We're connecting with a few from different eras that taught tennis lessons at Blair and also helped to spread the word and gain more names. Our strategy is a mailing list. We're going to use emails, follow-up phone calls, and a few postal letters. We want to recognize David Foster Wallace as a youth who grew up learning and playing the game that he loves so, tennis, at Blair Park, and went on to become a renowned writer. The Schrumpf family is planning on starting off the campaign with a $10,000 pledge. In addition, another UPF trustee, Sarah Barnett Nimeth, along with her mother, have given me a verbal commitment for another $10,000 pledge. So we're off to a good start. Tonight, what I'm asking of the UPD commissioners is to approve a plaque or an interpretive panel in honor of David Foster Wallace at Blair Park, along with some type of recognition for the donors of gifts of $1,000 or more based on our diligent and reasonable efforts. I think in your packet today, you got my basic bullet points of what I tried to convey tonight, and also a little synopsis of something about David Foster Wallace. So in case you have questions, really, we're typically not the renegades, but we really hatched this thinking that we will raise money, and I think it's going to be good long-term for how people feel about Blair Park. And you never know, the people we contact now may 10 years from now have funds to even remember Blair or the Park District in more ways. So questions? I have actually Sarah and my brother who's helping me are both on tonight too, in case I don't know anything you might want to ask. But we've talked to Tim a lot.
Just wanted to add, Nancy, we really enjoyed getting to meet Fred. I didn't know Fred before when he lived here in Urbana. Obviously, his enthusiasm and just joy of the sport, connecting with past students and teammates really was just very convincing and just uplifting, and knowing that people care that much, I think reflects on the background of your family and the history there.
And actually, Fred has a history of, or did you want to say this, Fred, of history of teaching tennis at Blair, coaching those students, starting some of the first junior tournaments. And he's been tracing down these people that he hasn't had connections with for 30 or 40 years. And it's just been heartwarming, and they've been enthusiastic. And actually, the Urbana High School coach Sanders contacted me, had heard about this, and wants to help in any way he can. I don't know if it's legal, if it's okay for Fred to speak or not. Looks like he's dying to there.
No, good.
In case you have any questions.
It is certainly legal for him to come in.
Welcome, even.
Yeah.
Well, he lives in Spokane, Washington. So, you know, we've been, the Zoom meetings with Tim have been a challenge.
Right.
I bet.
No, yes. Thanks for letting me say hello. No, it's been real interesting work tracing back. I was a recreation major, graduating in 73, worked for the Park District for years, teaching tennis and working at the day camp. Robin Hall was my supervisor, you know, when I was finishing my recreation degree. So, no, the whole park just has such fond memories, and there's so many people who've been, you know, who are all over the country, been very successful, but tennis made a big difference in their life. So I think we need to give these people, you know, an opportunity to give back to the community and reconnect with the courts. So that's what we're trying to do. And David Foster Wallace was quite a unique individual, you know, very positive young man that learned to play. And he was working for the Park District for several years when he was in college, teaching in the summer times with John Flaggar and Marty Mayer. And those, they're all doing well, and they're excited about this project.
And I'm back to the article in the paper today that I don't know if you read it, on the front page, which was kind of ironic, because think about 40 or 50 years from now, those are the people Fred's connecting with, and we're trying to gain money for Blair Park. So
when was David Foster Wallace actually, when was he in high school, or what was what are the dates?
1978 through 1980 was when he was on the high school tennis team.
Okay.
He graduated in 1980.
Right.
Right. I think he still taught tennis lessons maybe the first summer after college.
Yeah.
So after we get your approval, we are talking to his sister to also run everything by her, but she knows preliminary that we're discussing this and has been receptive.
Are you able to reach out through to the high school tennis players, you know, from his time forward? Have you got a list of that?
I've spent hours at the archives at Urbana Library, and we've gotten some from, and I was in high school in the 70s. So we have people from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And I'm hoping the current tennis coach is going to help with relative early people. And it really is amazing when we contact one person, we get 2 more names from them. So it's been a windy road.
Have you gotten a hold of Gordon? I think, isn't that his name, Gordon? Didn't he?
Yeah, Gordon K. Actually, I have his phone number. And I'm still looking for his email address. But yes, Gordon's in town, and yeah, we'll be contacting Gordon for sure.
Good, good.
Yeah, I was his coach. First year I coached when he was a senior.
Okay. And
So,
he was our
yeah.
son's coach when he was on
Oh,
the
yeah.
tennis team. Yeah. So it's a nice long chain, and the guys really did adore Gordon. I mean, he was quite a terrific coach. The kids really did like him a lot.
Yep, he's great.
So it's been interesting, but it's also been a lot of fun to reconnect. I would say probably half the people are out of town that we're contacting, but there are still some poor people. And my son plays in leagues in Champaign and Atkins, and there's some that play at Urbana courts regularly. So I've got a group of those names. So it's lots of different contacts. And of course, Sarah was on the high school team too. So she's going to drum up more names for me.
Great. Do you have a contact person or an address? So if we personally have names where we can get that information funneled to you?
I have the master list, if that's what you're
Okay.
saying.
Yeah. Or I mean, how does somebody who
Well,
knows tennis players get a hold of you?
Email would be the best.
Okay,
and that would the names and I add them to the list.
Nancy, maybe could you
and-
drop your email in the chat? That would be
Sure.
so we have access to it. That could be
I
helpful.
will try to
Oh
figure
yeah,
that
there
one
are
out.
two Nancys here. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Nancy
Yeah.
Shrunk.
Okay.
Yeah, I keep hearing
And-
Nancy
and-
said, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, who are we talking about?
Right.
And I'm working on a connection for Gordon K's email. So if I can find it, I'll get it to you.
All
He's a
right.
friend of a friend. So
Oh,
Good.
See, this is how it's been working for the last 6 months.
Mhm.
So we started with about 30 names. We're up to 75 to 80. So
Nancy, I can put your name in the chat if you'd like me to.
yes, that would be great. Thank
Great,
you.
I'll do it.
So I have the master list. Fred's contacting people he directly worked with. I'm doing others, and we're going from there. So, and a lot of people we're sending out a letter, and based on that, we're also saying, please pass the word. You can share this. I have a feeling it's going to eventually be posted in someone's Facebook page, but we're trying to figure out how to get more socially active like that.
The foundation becomes the conduit for the donations, and so that I think also enhances and amplifies what we're doing. So and the foundation can certainly figure out how to make all those connections happen too, and could be helpful in the long run as well.
Right. So I was glad to meet Jeremy tonight. So he'll be hearing from me because I've been emailing Katie quite a bit on how to set things up, and Fred, as in Fred Delcoam. So
yeah, too many Nancys and Freds here.
that's right. Which aren't really common names anymore.
No. Although it is coming back, there's fancy Nancy books, so we may see a resurgence in the next 10 years or so.
Jim, I was just thinking that I don't know if it's been mentioned, but in the annual report that staff prepare and the board reviews for goals for the foundation, this was one of the projects we highlighted under the placemaking tier. So it's wonderful it's coming to fruition, and it definitely meets the need that we've had for some time.
Absolutely.
So of course, Tim had said we can't guarantee our 160,000, but we're really moving forward on the premise that this will happen. And I'm optimistic of how much we will get, and certainly a lot of goodwill, I think, for future too.
Well, I'm speaking for myself as a commissioner, certainly appreciating the amount of legwork that you've already put into this. And I think it would be terrific if you approach that goal. And it's something that'd be a great resource for the community to have those courts back in truly top-notch shape.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Well-
I think this is a great idea.
Well, it's, a little outside the box, but we really feel like we have a shot.
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt to try, right? You just
That's right.
go with it and
And,
yep.
and all the effort, you're planting seeds for the future too. I mean, you never know who 10 years from now is going to say, hey, Park District. So,
Yep.
People are in different stages of their life here too, the 20-year-old versus the 60-year-old. So,
Mhm. Michael, did
Yeah.
you have any other questions or need any of the other board members, any additional information from staff or the Shrump family?
I certainly don't have any particularly additional questions. I mean, obviously, there's a project to get moved along here in terms of all the legwork that they want to do. I'm just really pleased that an active group like this is willing to undertake it, because it's not an easy thing to do. I'm sure they have all found out already, and truly, it's a great thing that you're trying to do.
well, we've really appreciated Tim's support through all this too. And, we were about ready to go, and then COVID hit, and then the health and wellness hit, fundraising we didn't want to encroach on. And so it's been a strung out time, but now is actually the perfect time because they're starting the work at Blair. A lot of people are talking about it, and that we're out of the light of the pandemic, hopefully, and so it's good timing.
I also want to thank Sarah Nemeth and Millie Barnett for their commitment. That certainly gives it a shot in the arm and gives a little leg up on the process. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I appreciate Fred and Nancy's letter that said, talked about thinking big and, set the bar. And I thought, well, Millie and I need to match that. So, yeah.
Sarah's mother and my mother played in women's leagues down there informally for years. So
Great story, really is. How tennis in a park could bring all these people together.
right.
And want to do some good things for the future, for the next generation.
And it looks like it's still happening too with the current generation. So there's a lot to
Absolutely.
feed on.
Yep.
Well, if everyone's in agreement, no need to, I guess, belabor the task. We have a lot of work to do, and we appreciate that. And just want to be clear with the board, the intent and the recognition that would follow. And every bit that we can raise will be put to good use, and it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thanks
for
for your
joining us
efforts.
tonight.
Okay.
Appreciate it. And you're welcome to stay around, but
Well,
we do appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
And
And I'll
I
be in
did get
touch
the-
with Laura too, because she reached out to me too. So
Great.
thank you.
Back to you, Michael.
Okay. All righty. So next item of business is appointments for the 2021 to 2024 UPDAT class.
Right.
Kelsey's here with information for you all. And I think she's muted too.
Do that every time. I had forwarded on to you all the applications that we had received for this year's appointments to UPDAC. They all seem like they're pretty excited and pretty interested from speaking with them, and obviously with the large number of people rolling off this year, that doesn't fully get us to a full group. So actually in UPDAC planning, we had kind of discussed what the strategy would be going forward. Assuming we don't, aren't able to get 10 applications. I'm hoping we will maybe get 2 more. There's 2 more people that seemed like they're interested, though we're still sort of mulling it over. So, we had discussed what the strategy would be in that case, but these 5 are interested in serving, and they've been updated on the process. So, if you have any questions for me about the applications, let me know, or and I'm happy to answer questions where I can.
I was just curious about our conversation last week about if there's been any outreach to current UPDAC members that might.
Well, that's what we kind of wanted to wait and see where we were before, going ahead. We thought that might be good. And we actually did discuss, people that we would reach out to fill unexpired terms. And I think there would be some interest from some of our UPDAC in staying on for an additional year. But we didn't want to do that until we started kind of appointing people. So that I think that is going to be our strategy, though, to if we're in a situation where we have a short group, and to just kind of level out those, sort of smooth out the recruitment, so that we're not, every 3 years having to scramble to appoint 10 people, and that way keeping a balance of experience on the committee.
I'm supportive of that. I just wanted to make sure we create space for new applications with diverse representation.
Yeah, and that's our goal. So we may even wait and see, because like I said, there's 2 other people that I'm speaking with that may still turn in applications. And if that's the case, I'd be, of course, bringing those to you guys for the July meeting. So there's still a little bit of a window of time, I think, that we have to kind of see how it ultimately shakes out.
And salient to the point of we don't want to what is it, the mouse going through the snake that's making a huge bump every 3 years.
Right.
That it would be good to smooth that out a little bit. And
so I think if the 2 people that I'm talking to now, if they both submit applications, that would put us at 7. So I think in a normal year, I think we want to be appointing 5 to 6 if our membership is 15 to 18. So, that puts us a little bit on the high end, but would take us on a path toward being able to smooth that out a little bit.
Yeah, the goal should be for 6 every year, and so 7 is not going outrageously beyond that. And if we could also perhaps fill in an unexpired term, that would be a good thing.
Yep. All right. So do you need a motion to approve the 5 nominees?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I move that we appoint, I gotta read, Ashley Withers, Mary Casey Diana, David Dorman, Carl Weingartner, and Patricia Hatch to 3-year terms on UPDAC starting in August.
Second.
You can see I don't have my annotated thing in front of me, but I think that'll cover it.
It's been moved and seconded. And is there any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none with remote attendance, we require a roll call vote for this.
We have a second?
Cedric.
Meredith seconded.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Aye.
And then Meredith.
You're muted, Meredith.
Okay. And Nancy.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
and I. So it went roundabout, but all 4 commissioners present voted in the affirmative for this. So we have approved this set of new UPDAC members. So, and good work, and let's hope for some more coming on board later this summer. And that takes us on to the Urbana Park District Advisory Committee report. And I see that Laura is with us this evening.
Everybody, we had a very exciting meeting in May, and we actually got to meet in person at Perkins Park. We kept our distance and wore a mask, but it was really exhilarating. First of all, to see everybody. Second of all, to be able to go through the park. And we had, and then I just want to really give a shout out to Matt Bulk, because he did an amazing job of showing us through the park and showing us where the changes were and how how he had seeded the areas and what's growing there and the natural areas and the plants and where the paths are that he's putting in. It was just very exciting to go out and see Perkins Park. So if you haven't been out to see it, I really recommend you go see it. And his passion and knowledge of the natural areas was really clear, and he was a great guide. And I appreciate the opportunity to go out there. We adjourned the meeting at 8:37. And again, great to see everybody in person. That's it.
Well, thank you, Laura. Is there any questions for Laura today? Well, seeing none, thank you again for joining us for this meeting this evening, Laura. That takes us on then to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda for this evening are approval of the minutes of the May 4th, 2021 study session meeting, approval of the minutes of our May 11 regular board meeting, and our annual meeting, monthly reports from the 3 departments of administration, planning and operations, and recreation, action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude, and lastly, approval of the monthly paid accounts payable. And again, for those perhaps less familiar with our rules, the rules of the consent agenda are such that any single commissioner can remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. And at this point, I will ask, is there any commissioner wishing to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening? I do not see any indication of that. So I would ask if there is a motion to approve this set of items in an omnibus fashion this evening.
Go ahead, Meredith.
Okay. I move to approve all the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
You're muted, Michael.
Oh, sorry. We now have this motion on the table, and under the rules of our consent agenda at this point, there is to be no further discussion, and we will move directly to a roll call vote since we're in remote attendance, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That carries unanimously, and we have approved all those items. And that moves us on to the reports for this month.
Okay, I think
starting with financial reports.
I'm up. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the reports. Can everybody see the report?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the first report that I'll be sharing with you is called the Revenue and Expenditure Report for the Park District for the month of May 2021. This report shows the receipts and expenditures for the prior month, or sorry, excuse me, for the prior fiscal year, the budget for the current fiscal year, and then the current month's activity. So the first page of this report is a summary report that we call Sum 1, and it is all of our funds excluding the capital improvements fund. So this gives you a better look at the operating funds of the Park District without clouding it up with capital. Revenues for this period were $1,960,000, and total revenues. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying. 1.6 million of this was property taxes, and we received our first property tax payment for levy year 2020 on May 28th, which is good. That means they're on schedule. We had some issues with that the last couple of years, so. Was very excited that we got that first disbursement in the month of May. So last year we were getting them the first week of the month following instead of within the month that we usually would. So it's very good to be back on schedule and to have those funds available in a timely way. So we're pleased about that. On the expenditure side, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I had another comment about revenues. I was tickled to see that under fees here, you could see our ending balance for FY20 that just ended. We had about 222,000 of fees, which I've talked every month about how normally this number is over $1 million. So COVID really hit us hard, and we're budgeting less this year, not what we normally would have. But we've already earned over a quarter of what we earned all of last year just in the first month. So I'm very pleased about that. So that goes to show what having our camps running and our pools open can do for the Park District. On the expenditure side, we had total expenditures for May of $540,000, and we have a surplus at the end of May of $1,421,000. Which means that revenues exceed expenditures at this point in time, which is very typical for us because all of our property taxes are front loaded at the beginning of the year. We usually receive property taxes May through November or so. And so then after that point, it's kind of a spending down of those funds, and property taxes make up about 70% of our total revenues. So it's an important source of funds for the Park District. So moving on to the second page of this report is called Sum 2. This is only the capital improvements fund. And you can see we had $100 in revenue. That was just some interest earnings for the month of May. And we had $126,000 in expenditures, leaving a decrease in fund balance at the end of May of $126,000. And then finally, Sum 3 is just those first two pages added together, which is a district-wide picture of the entire Park District. And so all of these totals are literally just those first two pages. But the number that I like to point out to all of the commissioners is this is the ending fund balance. The $17,092,000 is the ending fund balance of the entire district. So, if this business shut down today, that's the amount of funds that I guess would be redistributed to the citizens or whatever. I don't know how that works. Hopefully that never happens. We're a forever organization. So, but that's just an important number that we track. It goes up and down naturally. It's quite high at the moment for what we would typically see because of the bond money from the Series 2019 A bonds that we're still actively spending. So we'll continue to see that decrease, and that'll be normal. And at some point soon, I will be bringing some charts and graphs for Meredith to kind of highlight the way that fund balance has changed over the last fiscal year, but I can't really do that until the fiscal year closes. So I was thinking July or August might be a good month for that. After those first three summary pages, we also print the individual summary reports for our main working funds. So there's a report for the general fund, the recreation fund, museum fund, and the indoor pool. So if anybody has any questions about the revenue and expenditure report, otherwise I'll stop sharing so I can scroll down to not make you dizzy. scrolling down to the treasurer's report. Awesome. Okay, cool. So the next report that I have to share is the treasurer's report for the Park District. This report is the amount of cash that the Park District has on one day, which is May 31st, 2021. All 24 of our funds are represented, and it shows in the columns which bank accounts those funds are invested in. And so we have a grand total of cash on hand at the end of May on this one day of $16,587,960.07. The top section on the second page lists investments that the Park District holds. So of that 16,588,000, we have 15,544 out in investments. And man, they are tanking. So I haven't chosen to reinvest a lot of CDs because the rate I'm just getting in our Chase savings account's better than I can get for a CD. So it's just, why lock up our money if I can get the same or better interest rate in a savings account that is liquid? So it's just a little bit depressing. I keep looking, I have a laddered, I have these 5 laddered CDs at Commerce that every time one matures, I'm like, oh man, do I reinvest it at 0.4? Look, these average 5 CDs, the average is 0.4. So it's almost not worth having them because we could have them at Chase, but there's some advantage to having your portfolio diversified in lots of different areas. So it's okay. And, we're lucky that at the time we sold those Series 2019 A bonds, we worked with IPTLAF to set up some laddered CDs for the bond money that we knew we didn't need yet. Because we've really benefited from that high interest rate. They're projecting just with that initial CD investment that we had with them, we were going to earn over $100,000 that then can be used for our projects. So, that was a real great ladder that they were able to set up for us initially. And as those mature, we're also going to continue to look and see about reinvesting. But right now it's not, that kind of depends on project timelines, because if we're ready to spend the funds now as we anticipated, then we wouldn't reinvest. But anyway, moving on. There were no changes to interfund loans this period. And then finally, the final page of this report lists disbursements for the month of May. So vendor payments on this list match what you saw on the paid accounts payable, and which was on the consent agenda. And total disbursements of funds for the month of May totaled $944,000. And when I was reading this, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Normally, this total down here is about equal to the expenditures total from the revenue and expenditure report that I presented to you first. But the revenue and expenditures report for the month of May was only $540,000. And I had to think for a second. I was like, oh, wait, I know why this is. It's and I thought that you guys might like to also know. It's because of the difference is the expenditures that we're still booking to the prior fiscal year. So all throughout the month of May and even into the month of June, we're still paying bills dating back to April. So the cash is still leaving in this month, which is why this total's higher. But the expenditure side of it is now represented in the fiscal year to date column. That was the first column that you see on that report. So those numbers are still preliminary and will continue to change basically until the audit. And at that point in time, all of our payables have been booked, and we don't usually get any bills that late that we haven't paid. So. And with that information, if you don't have any questions, I present the treasurer's report to you for approval.
And we accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this point? Hearing none, a roll call vote, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And I vote affirmatively as well, and that carries unanimously. Moves us to the capital budget.
Okay, hi. So now I'll just briefly overview with you any areas of activity in the capital budget, and kind of dovetailing off of what I just said, there's actually going to be expenditures in 2 different columns, because any bills that were paid that were relevant to the prior fiscal year are going to be in this fiscal year 2021 column. And then any bills that were paid relevant to expenditures that actually occurred in May are in this new column that's been created on these reports. I can zoom in a little bit more if that's helpful. So in the Series 2019 A bonds, you can see there was activity in both fiscal years for the lake rehab project, and there was activity in last fiscal year for the one-way road system. In the 2021 capital budget, expenditures occurred on tributes and construction crew projects, and that was all related to April expenditures that were paid in May. Let's see, in the 2020 capital budget, expenditures were paid on tributes and, sorry, I just lost my thoughts. Okay, here, hazard tree work, recreation small equipment, and Blair Park improvements. And finally, down at the bottom of the page here, we had some expenditures on water quality improvements at Crystal Lake, additional Blair Park improvements out of a contingency line, and then the dog park resurfacing project that they did on the parking lot. Sometimes you see, I guess I wanted to comment too, because there was a lot of that this month. Sometimes you see like the same project over and over and out of all of these different lines. And that's kind of just how our projects get pieced together over time. You know, we have an original idea and we slot it in for, you know, to get paid out of a certain year. But then as the project develops, there's more here or more there. And we piece it together with all of these budgets as we're able to. And we can always, and Andy tracks the budgets on spreadsheets where it consolidates all those accounts into one project budget. So they're a little bit easier to look at there than on a spreadsheet like this, where you're like, man, this is all over the place. But we do track it in multiple ways. So in the 2019 capital budget, expenditures were paid on recreation small equipment. And then down below here, this entire section was on rehab project for Crystal Lake out of a whole bunch of different funding sources. So that's why these are listed separately, so we can track where the monies came from that paid the expenses. So we paid for some out of bond money, we paid for some out of grant money, we paid for some from Urbana Parks Foundation contributions, and we paid for some from a general fund transfer that the board authorized in 2020 that was allocated to this project. And lastly, there was some spillover from the dog park resurfacing that was coded to this year as well. In the 2018 capital budget, we had spending in both fiscal years. We had some spending in the recreation small equipment. I think they were just really gearing up for summer, so they were kind of spending some of these older budgets out. We had spending out of the hardscapes line, and then we had a little bit of spending to finish out this cricket pitch donation to finalize that budget out.
Yeah, Katie, also on the recreation small equipment, we'd cut a lot of those lines last year due to COVID.
Yeah.
And so because of COVID, we also had built up a year or so of money in the capital. So instead of them having money in their actual operating budgets, we used some money out of the capital for some picnic tables at the lake house and some tents for camp, and I believe Leslie bought some life jackets for the pool, and so that's kind of where those dollars went.
Yeah, thank you. I do sometimes try to bring out that line item detail, and I appreciate sharing that level of detail with the board. I just didn't have time to get that all together today, so thank you, Corky, for that. And then finally, just there was some additional spending for Blair Park out of the 2018 budget as well. And then there was no spending out of the 2017 capital budget this period. So with that, I toss it over to Andy and Derek if they have any additional updates for you on capital projects.
Yeah, I can start with Crystal Lake Park. Since our last board meeting, the boat dock arrived and has been installed. Boating operations have begun. The ADA revisions to the plaza area were completed, as well as those final modifications to that makeup water feature that was reducing the volume of water coming out, and then placing some outcropping stone around the outlet to deter people from using it as a play feature. Tomorrow, we're actually anticipating plants to be delivered in the morning, and the landscaping contractor to work on installation for the remainder of the week, primarily within the cobbled areas around the lake and the wetland shelves. They'll be doing maintenance to their planted areas during this time as well. tomorrow, I think they're going to start to install the floating islands in the sediment basin. So just as a reminder, these islands are kind of another way that we're trying to help remove nutrient loading from the water by allowing the plants to naturally absorb those nutrients through their root systems. And that'll help clean the water that's coming in, the storm water, to the basin before it moves from the basin through the bridge to the main body of the lake. We've been working with our lake management contractor to evaluate the new, more filamentous type algae we've seen within our lake this year. They're planning on being on site the remainder of this week, starting tomorrow, and they'll be actually manually removing a lot of the algae and then do a limited herbicide treatment on whatever's remaining portions that they cannot physically remove during their visit. They'll be here for the next 3 days. And that manual removal is really one of the best things we can do to physically take the nutrients away, since they're stored in that algae. So it's will be hopefully a good long-term help for the lake quality as well. Aaron, who's our project lead engineer with ERA, has noted that it's very common after disturbing so much soils in the lake rehab project she does. She sees increases in algae in the first year or two before BMPs and the vegetation is really established and that water gets settled down a little more. Doesn't have so many suspended solids within it. And coincidentally, we did have a student at the university, a postdoctoral student, reach out to us to help review our lake as well. He works with a group that advises on I guess nature-based ecological tools to remove nutrients from water, and it's an outreach group that primarily works more for agricultural type applications. I think he was just enjoying the park and noted the lake conditions and wanted to reach out and help. And we had a meeting with him out at the lake last week. He provided some information to us to potentially install a type of aggregate absorption media that has shown results to pull phosphorus from the water. And so we're taking kind of a deeper look into that, potentially to incorporate it into one of our BMPs as another way to reduce that nutrient load. So potentially we would construct some sort of a cage to hold that aggregate material and hold it within the water. You know, it could be within a storm separator before it enters the lake, or within the makeup water feature, one of the pools. And this will help pull phosphorus from the water before it enters the lake and fertilizes for algae growth. So we're going to continue working with him, sending him some data that we've collected over the years, and he'll, you know, hopefully continue to help advise us in the future as we move through kind of one of his ideas there, and send additional steps as well, just to bounce off different types of concepts with him and see what his experience has been. With Blair, our OSLAD project, the contractor's been on site, you may have noticed, focusing on the new path along the east side of the park. The last few days, they've been forming the area to prepare for their first concrete pour that was completed early this morning. Next, they will be working to excavate the areas associated with the play equipment, so the challenge course and the playground. Before it started pouring this afternoon, they were starting to take some of that playground area soil away. So that's Keith from our staff can actually go in and stake out the locations of the equipment before they place the under drainage, so we don't run into potential conflicts during the install of the equipment. They're going to be continuing to work around the park with the path installations as well. I do have a couple pictures I'll share tonight. There weren't a lot of exciting pictures in the last couple of weeks there, but I'll try to bring pictures as we progress through the construction period to the board each month, kind of similarly to when we had a lot of activity going on at Crystal Lake. Couple other just quick updates. First, with the indoor pool, we finalized our closure date for the installation of the new domestic hot water system. It's going to be between August 2nd and August 8th. Our aquatics recreation staff are working to facilitate messaging and rescheduling any programming during that period. And then lastly, if you recall, as a result of the big hailstorm we had last year, our roof at Phillips sustained some damage, and we began to work with our insurance to submit a claim. Our insurance will be providing funding to replace the asphalt shingles and replacement of air handling units as part of the project. During our approval last November of the 2021 capital budget, we did include $50,000 for design work and any other additional items that may be needed during construction that are not part of that insurance claim. So we'll be including some alternates within the bid to be able to identify those costs, which could be metal roofing as opposed to the asphalt shingles, or possibly any ventilation work that's associated with doing a roof repair that may not be part of the actual hail damage. So we've entered into an agreement for architectural services with IGW and held a meeting to review the project last week, and they're beginning to put together documents for bid and for our staff review here in the next few weeks. Our hope, schedule-wise, is to have this out to bid this summer, have a recommendation to the board in August or September, and then have work at Phillips for the fall of 2021, avoiding our camp season. So I'll continue to update at the following meetings on that as well. I do have, as promised, a few pictures. A couple from Crystal Lake as well. So this is showing the new boat dock. I tried to get a picture where you can kind of see the new decking, the new access ramp, the stone, and the boat dock all in one picture. The material, here's a different angle. It's kind of like concrete, integrated color concrete tiles on this deck, and we chose a color to kind of complement the stone around the park. The limestone blocks that you see here. And then I mentioned the ADA improvements we had to the plaza area off of Broadway. So this concrete path along between the two stone areas was added, and we had a pour here that would serve as the accessible seating area and partner seating location for the top section, and then have an accessible access route down where we could have another seating on the bottom area as well with the partner seating next to it. And so they did the brushed color concrete. I thought it turned out really well. Looks very nice. And Stark actually had some ideas to build some stone around in this area too, to kind of make it all blend in together. I did not have a good picture of the makeup water feature. You really can't see the water coming out through the picture or anything, but if you get a chance to go by it, just listening to it's very pleasant. It's kind of a nice spot to go. And then a few pictures on Blair Park. This is kind of the first dirt being moved at the site. This is on that eastern edge on Vine. You can see their aggregate that they have starting to stockpile here, getting ready for the final placement and tamping it down. This was probably middle of last week. And then this is Monday, I think. Yeah, where they were starting to put the forms in. And they only were able to do a little bit of concrete today because then it started to look like they were going to have a rainstorm. So they had to cover everything up and pull away. I haven't checked the weather recently, but tomorrow doesn't look great either. Last time I checked, so maybe another couple days before they can get a lot more concrete going on this side anyway. Other than that, happy to answer any questions.
Andy, I'll just add that Tim received a mailbag question about the algae at the lake, and so a lot of what you summarized is in Tim's response, and so folks will see that in the paper on Saturday. It like Andy said, Aaron expects that this will calm down some over time. It seems like it already is getting a little bit better with the water feature on, that just moving the water has helped some. And as more of these BMPs established with these native wetland vegetation plants, they'll start to do what the algae is doing, which is absorb the nutrient. And so I think, Andy, we also have some alum treatment scheduled for this year as well. And
correct.
And then kind of in our back pocket, you may remember that we when we bid the lake project, we got pricing on an aeration system. It came in pretty high, it's about $100,000. And in reviewing, what we already have in place in other BMPs, we felt like this was a good approach, and if we need to come back and add an aeration system, we could. Our previous environmental engineer was sort of on the fence about whether aeration would be useful for our lake or not. And it sounds like it's sometimes very helpful, sometimes not so. We know that they have an aeration system at Stone Creek Golf Course where they also have algae problems, and they have an algae harvester they've purchased. In fact, the gentleman that helps us with our goose management services also works with them, is going to be lending a hand tomorrow as we extract the algae. He's got some equipment that will help with that extraction. And then staff will be out as well with our backhoe and other equipment to help remove the algae as the contractor brings it towards the lake edge. So it'll be an interesting couple of days as we get that removed. So in addition to aeration, the other thing we have in our back pocket that if we really need to, it's the one true silver bullet, is to do hydrovacing of the sediment that's in the rest of the lake. But it's a last I checked, it's about a $350,000 expenditure, and so we thought that didn't make sense to pursue until we gave these other approaches a fair shake. So looks like things are getting better already, but we'll continue to watch it. And I just wanted to make you all aware that you'll at least see something in the paper about it on Saturday. And then the only other thing on Blair Park that I wanted to mention is that we've engaged with Smith Burgett to do some conceptual architectural services. He'll be looking at both the pavilion restroom area and then the tennis seating plaza area on the north courts, doing some conceptual design for both those to make them consistent in architectural look. We have a donor that's interested in the seating plaza, and we wanted to make sure that both of those designs come together. In addition to the concepts, we'll do some renderings and cost estimates for us that we can use for funding this project moving forward.
Derek, what's going to happen to all the weed that comes out of the lake?
It's going to go to hickory. We're going to compost it.
Yay!
Yep.
Rich in nutrients.
Any other questions on the capital budget report? Hearing none, and we're ready to move on to the executive director's report. Tim.
Thank you, Michael. Let's see, starting out, hope y'all had a chance to read the You Belong Here report. Lots of great information, some exciting news about language services and interpretation. Really find that helpful to our residents. So hopefully folks will be able to take advantage of that. Let's see, moving along, lots of optimism. As you know, coming up Friday, June 11th, it'll be announced we'll move to phase 5. Good news, obviously it brings a lot of opportunities back to us. Staff's been working on new messaging, new signage to let the public know what they need to do. Not a whole lot of restrictions, but certainly safety and making sure people feel comfortable is on the top of our list. So we'll be working hard to get those signs out and to answer questions. We do have an all staff meeting tomorrow, just to update everybody. So it's been an interesting, long process, and we're glad we're at this point. As part of that reopening, obviously Crystal Lake Pool opened and had a interesting opening weekend. As I often do, I usually ask Corky to give us a few updates about that opening. Corky, I know we had some rough weather to start.
Yeah, obviously the Memorial Day weekend was a rough one from a temperature standpoint. I believe we opened Sunday, but late. I think it was like 3 o'clock on Sunday, and then we were open Monday. And then, like typical fashion, we had a fantastic weather weekend the next weekend, and you know, the rest of the week of Memorial Day was nice as well. We've got our capacity reduced. We're basically between 500 and 600 people. Over the weekend, we were close to 500 and 600 people, so things went really smooth. We've got programs going on at a little bit of reduced capacity for like our water aerobics and nadiators, but still have a lot of youth and nadiator swim team. We're using a lot of the lane lines for that. Staffing, you know, for right now, we're getting by. we have roughly, I'd say roughly around 75 aquatic staff total. We'd like to be in the 135 range at the minimal. So right now we're doing great. My big concern is, you know, come August when we need to, we lose some people due to college and burnout and everything else. So we're continuing to try various methods to attract some more staff. And, you know, as we gain more staff, I guess this is the important part, as we gain more staff, that will help us increase capacity as well, and hours and things of that nature. So right now our indoor pool, which I don't see changing in the near future until we bring on more staff, is primarily for programming. It's not, you know, we do have some lap swim for public, but we don't just have public open hours right now, trying to make sure we can keep one pool fully staffed. And but as we gain more staff, that will come into play as well. So all in all, very excited. Summer camp started too. Was in there Monday morning, and it was like, wow, really been missing this. Having all the youth out and about in our facilities is really amazing. It's like one of those we finally made it moments. Really, I mean, it's really exciting to start seeing people back out using our programs. With camps themselves, sorry, Tim, I know you didn't ask me to go too deep.
It's quite okay.
But with camps in general, you know, we have reduced numbers. Most of that we can increase a little bit, but we still have to watch our group sizes. So, you know, we can't just open up our buildings like we usually do. We still have to have certain groups of kids and like at Phillips in one room, and then you got to have the wall and another group of kids. So that's still limiting how much we can increase. But I do imagine here, as we move through the summer, we might be able to increase a little bit more as we move on. So, but really exciting stuff. It's neat to finally get back into the swing of what we do every day.
Great, thank you, Corky. All good news there. Moving along with more good news, as you know, staff's really, and the steering committee's very focused on the health and wellness facility and our fundraising. We're continuing to get new names brought to us, and we're engaging in our public phase. We met with our artist that's going to be working on the art piece. That's going to kind of be the central focus of that public campaign. And it's going to be really exciting, folks. Can't wait to share the details once they're coming together, and we'll be able to share them shortly. But I think it's going to add just that extra special element to that facility that's just really going to attract people. And I think we'll attract folks in the fundraising process also. We're getting good news about our DCO grant. Staff's working on the final details to make sure that that funding source could come through and at the right time. Probably the one bit of concern we have is, you know, we're continuing to hear that bid prices are kind of going up and up. They're a little bit out of control right now in different segments. It's not necessarily every single thing. As we understand too, it's the whole process, everything from supply, factories, transportation, storage, warehouse, to get things ordered and hold those prices for a typical bid window is challenging in some areas. So we're trying to get more information. We're trying to work with the Farnsworth Group, see what they know and what they'd recommend. So we'll be probably sharing some updates with you once we get a little more concrete information on where that goes. Kind of along with the health and wellness facility, staff's engaged in fact, what kind of started getting us on that track was looking at our athletic fields, courts, and all of our outdoor rec, spaces. We started out with a staff objective that led to getting really involved with a health and wellness facility because they're all linked together, especially at that location at the Prairie Park, Weaver Park area. So to formalize that, we did reach out to the Smith Group. They had done the master plan on Weaver Park previously. Our thought was maybe we could get a affordable proposal to give us more information about bringing athletics together, where we are in other parks, primarily what we're going to do in that part of town with Prairie and Weaver. We did get a proposal. It was a pretty high number. I think staff struggled with it. I think ultimately we're recommending that we're just going to have to wait for that. Our main focus needs to be the health and wellness facility. Any funds, that could be available should probably be preserved, for whatever's needed there. But we really do need to get that information. So a few things we're hoping to do on the staff side: re-energize, get our group back together, see what and how much of that information we can pull together. A lot of it we have in draft form. I think we can pull it, at least an existing report of existing conditions. But we really want to get at that in a larger way because there's a lot of capital investment that usually goes along with athletics. So having a more clear picture. Also, we're going to have some ball fields going away for the construction, and that could raise a number of questions that we won't immediately and thoroughly be able to answer. I think the thorough answer is, we're going to focus on the health and wellness facility, the adjacent facilities around that facility, and then focus on what we can get done in the Prairie Blair or Weaver Park area as it relates to new fields, and looking at our old existing fields in other areas. So we'll get to it. It's just going to take a little more time, and we're asking for everybody's patience. Moving along, got a few dates to call out. The Urbana Parks Foundation dinner is this Friday, June 11th from 5 to 7 at the Lake House. I think it's a capped number. I think we're around 48. I think 50 was our target. So we'll probably have roughly 50 folks there, and look forward to that event. On Saturday, June 12th, the Park District's being included in a honor program. The Silver Hearts Group is putting together a VIP program for all the groups and agencies and individuals that help the Silverwood neighborhood over the last 5 years. Obviously, Park District's been involved there. So we'll have a group there showing up there. Look forward to that. Let's see, moving on. Working on sculpture, have a few options to consider. So we'll be doing some summer sculpture installations and probably moving some things around. So we're excited about that. We completed Cedric Stratton's orientation as far as the park tour. Kelsey's been great putting information together. We also did a park tour to look at new parks, future parks, and edge parks. And I really appreciated Cedric's interest in that because I asked what he wanted to really see. Obviously, he's seen other parks as part of his UPDAC work. But we spent all of our time mostly talking about the future and parks that will be developed or what could happen. So obviously an exciting time. Last thing I wanted to share, and I think staff can pop up the image of the Clark Lindsay master plan. So we've been continually working with Clark Lindsay. They have another expansion plan on their campus. They're always sensitive to the Park District's interest and concern at the site. And as you can see, looking up north along Windsor Road, you can see on that far right side, the darker blue villas on that lower southern portion are the new elements. We're going to probably need to relocate. Yeah, thank you. Relocate that path that comes into the park. There may be some adjustment there. I think that detention basin may get reformed a little bit. There's some other improvements they're doing in the pink and purple parts of the diagram. Their health and wellness area is being enlarged, about doubled. You can see the pool, that small blue structure in the purple, but they're adding more recreational facilities, and there'll be improvements in the orange section. So a lot of projects, my understanding is the construction will take about 5 years. They'll be in continual use of the site, rotating staging areas, parking for staff, that sort of thing. So I've encouraged Clark Lindsay, to continue to work with the Park District. Also, you'll notice that road that links the gray parking lots, roads to the villas, that'll be extended over. Yes, thank you. And down to the greenhouses that border our organic gardens. I met with Deb Rudens a couple of times over the past few months. I don't think there was any immediate direct impact, on the park. We maintain very positive relationship and encourage them to continue on their path, creating really exciting master plan. Obviously, a lot of their success, they point to having the park right next to their site. So we do have a unique relationship. I think they're interested and willing to do anything that we might recommend if there is an impact on the site. Things that we continue to notice. Thank you. Continuing to notice is, as they expand and, add a little more density to their campus plan, we become a little more concerned about the edges, views in, views out, any impacts, air conditioning units, noise, that sort of thing that might cause some sort of impact. You can see that area in number 1 there. Thank you on that development plan. That's probably the first part of their construction. And they'll move through the numerical 2, 3, and 4 over that 5-year period. So again, they're looking to improve, expand, and intensify their development. And again, they've been good neighbors. Likely be writing a support letter as they go through their city review process and as things go on in that process. Let's see, I believe that's all the items I had on my report. I can answer any questions if there are any.
Tim, did I miss a list that might have been sent out about all the new little art installations around in the park?
You're talking about the great art doors that installed. I'm not sure. We can send it out. We'll make sure all the commissioners get it. You may have received it. I think Janet does a pretty good job of keeping folks in the know of where they are.
Yeah, I must just have missed it. Yeah.
Well, it may not have gotten sent out to everybody. We'll double check and just have it sent out. Again, if you haven't seen them, they're in several of our parks and definitely interesting. And we just love that idea of having more and more ways for more art in the community and art expression. So we'll continue doing as many of those things as we can. And just want to thank the rec staff, the operations staff. It takes the whole team, get things into place. And I think they do a good job. Obviously, there's always concern of vandalism or some other issues, but we want to continue trying and add to the art and culture of Urbana.
Do you know how many we have?
I believe there were 4 in that rotation.
Okay.
And then just stay tuned. Rec staff's working on the Great Art Divide. That's going to be art images on the bridge at Crystal Lake Park. So that's coming. We'll be planning a meeting on that. I think a few UPDAC people have been pulled in on the jury. So it's going to be fun and interesting. And again, another art element I'd point out, I forgot when we were talking about pools. If you go up to Crystal Lake Family Aquatic Center, there's a large utility box near the foot spray bath on the outside of the park that has been artfully camouflaged. And there's a beautiful art element over that utility boxes. A lot of cities do that, take ordinary items like utility structures and paint them or put diagrams or designs on them. I think you'll find that one very interesting, and it really blends with the site. I think they really picked up on the colors and looks really interesting. So keep your eyes open, and hopefully we'll see more and more artful things in Urbana. That's all I had, Michael.
Okay. Any other questions for Tim? Hearing none, and move on to the president's report in terms of upcoming meetings. 22nd of June is the UPDAC meeting. And they will be having I think pretty much the presentation we had at the study session being rolled out there. There is no study session scheduled for July. And then on July 13th will be the regular board meeting, at which point the annual hearing on the combined budget and appropriation ordinance is conducted. And we typically adopt the budget at that meeting. So there may be revisions to capital projects budget and a semi-annual, our ever famous semi-annual review of past executive session minutes. So when we, assuming things are moving out of the COVID phases, it may actually be possible to do that review without being out in the heat, to do that outdoors. I don't have anything else specific to report at this point. So moving on to liaison reports, the finance study group did meet last Friday. I think a number of the items that we discussed there have come forward tonight, and some others are going to be on the agenda later on here. We talked extensively about health and wellness grant money and how that can be bridged across two different grants without violating the rules. It does look pretty optimistic in terms of our being able to apply those grants fully. And at the same time, there's enormous concern over the uncertainties in the bidding climate that Tim has already mentioned. We also discussed some staffing levels that I believe is going to be discussed later on this evening in terms of adding a position in the planning and operations. We're going to be meeting again on July the 9th. I'm going to try to remote into that one, which is legal, as this is not, these are not formal meetings that have to be made as public because there is never a quorum present at them. I don't have anything particularly further to report then from the finance study group. So we move on to the policy study group. Is there anything to report there?
Yeah, we last met in April on the 13th, and you saw we reviewed several sections that we presented last month in the board meeting for approvals, and so we'll be scheduling future meetings.
And our Urbana Parks Foundation representative, Roger, is not present here this evening. I don't know if there's anything from the foundation that you want to let us know about, Tim?
Yeah, I told Roger I would mention the foundation dinner that's coming up Friday, which I covered in my report. And he continues to just share his enthusiasm for the number of people that are responding, the effectiveness of the steering committee in outreach, and just getting very much closer to our goal.
And then moving on to the UPDAC planning study group, and I gather there was a meeting of that today.
Yes. We met tonight. We talked about the policy of having, or as we talked about the bylaws, what says that it is can't have people who are employed by the park district on UPDAC, and yet a number of people on UPDAC, probably, was it 3, Cedric?
At least,
yeah. Let me get my video back on. I'm running low on juice, so I turned myself off. Folks who are not full-time employees are working for the park district just in a few hours a week, a lot of them. And so we're looking again at the bylaws. We talked about term limits. We talked about moving new people or filling in some empty slots with folks who are going off, essentially giving them a fourth year. What else did we talk about, Cedric?
We talked about we looked over a list of possible
right
up deck sessions, and then we also kind of spoke about just up deck in general, just like some, how things are going, if there are things that we might want to change in the future.
Yeah, just sort of housekeeping kinds of things, how we're going to organize the agenda, see if we can get people talking before they're snoozing off and thinking about going to bed. So yeah, it was a very productive meeting. It worked really well. So that's where we are, and the policy committee is going to be taking a look at the bylaws, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's what, and I think Kelsey's gonna punch something together to show the
I'll
policy
draft
committee.
up some language and then share it with Alex, and next time policy gets together, that'll probably be part of it.
Yep. So that was it. That was our hour tonight.
All right. Any questions on any of these various study groups reports? Hearing none, then we're ready to move on to old business, and item A under old business is to receive a draft ordinance 2021-06 to adopt the fiscal year 2021-22 combined budget and appropriation ordinance.
Okay, that's back to me. The document that you received in your board packet tonight is a draft. It does not usually change at all from the moment that it is a draft. It's posted at the business office. We put a notice in the newspaper that it's available. It's on our website as part of the board packet. Anybody's welcome to inspect it. But the final action on it is not until the July board meeting. So there is a month where the public can review and comment, or the board can review and comment. And so at the July board meeting, you'll actually receive what we call the budget book. That's kind of the official document of the budget that has much more detail than the budget and appropriation ordinance that you received in your packet. So, but that document won't be for another month. And in the meantime, Derek and Corky and I would like to present to you a brief presentation of the major highlights of some of the things that are included in the budget, just so that you're aware of how things, of some of the things that are included in that budget and appropriation ordinance that you did receive. And there's not a whole lot of line item detail in it. So we wanted to make sure to, a lot of our budget doesn't change year to year. It kind of winds up being the same, or with increases for, to salaries and wages, for example, but they don't change much. But the major changes we'd like to just go over with you briefly. So I have a presentation to share that we worked on for you. Can everybody see that? So firstly, just to do a brief overview of our budget cycle for anyone watching at home. The budget cycle actually starts in November. It's a fairly long cycle, and we do all of our budgets from the bottom up. So the staff at the program level begin the budgets in November. Those get filtered up to the department heads in December and January. Then in February, the business office receives budget requests, and we enter them into the financial system. The budget is presented preliminarily to the board in April. And there are still a lot of changes that happen between when you receive the preliminary versus when what's in the final budget and appropriation ordinances. For example, I don't know final salaries in April when I provide you the prelim budget, because you're voting for them at the April meeting. So until those are approved, they're not incorporated into the budget. And there's other things like that as well. For example, we didn't have our final tax extension in the mail until May. So there's up until that in the prelim budget, it was just estimates. The final budgets are input in May and June, and then the notice of the public hearing is published in June with the adoption of the ordinance at the July board meeting, and then subsequently the ordinance is filed at the county clerk's office, and that's really the beginning of our budget cycle that starts on May 1st. Next, I threw together a couple of pie charts that just go over our major revenue sources and expenditure sources. So you can see the majority of our money comes from property taxes. This year, it's around 66%. And then after that, you can see what the other major sources are going to be after that: facility fees and rentals, and then donations and miscellaneous income. So grants fluctuate up and down, so that's not something that we can generally predict. Our total revenues for FY21 are $11,699,520. And then that includes everything budget wide that we're anticipating. Moving on to, I just wanted to narrow in a little bit on the property tax portion of our revenues, because it is such a large and important portion of a source of revenue for the district. So every year, it's a very confusing process, but every year in October and November, the board is asked to make a decision on how much to levy for the following year. And I'll talk a little bit more and give more background on that when the time comes. But at the time last year, when the board made that decision, they chose to levy 25.87% more than we were currently levying. And that was the decision the board made. And in the end, the amount of increase in property taxes that we actually wound up with because of property tax limitation law was 3.8%. In the end, we get what we get, but the reason we levy high is because there's a lot of unpredictability when the estimates are made on what the assessed evaluation will be for the coming year. And particularly because there's a couple of hospitals that have a large EAV in our district that may or may not wind up on our tax rolls unexpectedly due to litigation that's currently happening. The change in the consumer price index, and I apologize for all these acronyms. I think if I improve this presentation, I'll spell all these things out next year. The change in the consumer price index is what drives the increase year to year in our property taxes. And then on top of that, it's any increase in EAV from year to year of new property. So you can see our increase in the consumer price index was 2.3. That's a number that the state assigns annually. And the increase in our assessed evaluation for the district was 1.4. So that's pretty much right on with that 3.8% increase to property taxes. On the expenditure side, I made another pie chart just to highlight our major expenditures. Obviously, this coming year, our capital outlay is a huge source for expenditures because we're currently appropriating to spend basically all but $1 million that we have in the capital improvements fund. That probably won't happen, but it's also good to be prepared because we don't know what our construction schedules will actually be at this point, when things will move. And so we've gone ahead and basically levied the entire 2019 A bonds in the event that opportunity would arise to spend them. But it kind of overinflates what our operating budget is, which is really the other half of this graph. Our major expenditure sources, like most other organizations, wind up being for salaries and benefits for staff. So you can see full-time, part-time salaries and insurance. If you add all those together, they make up, and IMRF payments and FICA payments make up a considerable chunk of the Park District's budget. And following that would be contractual services, debt payments, etc. So I just wanted to give that kind of overview highlight. And then now we're going to kind of move into the meat of the presentation of what changes there really are year to year from last year and really even the year before. And to start with, I'm going to pass it over to Corky and Derek because they've experienced this the most, but to kind of give a little bit of context to what FY22 means for us as far as post-COVID recovery goes.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hit on it a little bit when I was talking about moving into bigger numbers as we move to phase 5. We obviously have some hiring challenges, increasing that level of participation, and making sure everything's safe really kind of pivots around the, the staff that we have. A lot of the like summer camps, the spaces we have available, and still following the rules of groups. Plus, we have challenges that, you plan on this number and you've hired this number of staff. And so, we'll be working on increasing some of those staff numbers as summer goes through to where we can hopefully take a few more kids in some areas. But obviously that's a big challenge. It's a big challenge everywhere. So we'll continue with that. From a revenue uncertainty with the budgets for sure. We're planning to, when we were planning the budget in November, December, January, hoping that we could have 50% capacity in our programming. And good news is, I think we're definitely going to hit that, and hopefully we can increase that. But we definitely were playing safe from a revenue versus participation levels. Derek, you want to talk maybe about the vehicle and maybe even your hiring challenges?
Absolutely. Thanks, Corky. So they're actually sort of tied together. Last year we got through with a really bare bones seasonal staff crew to support what were considered our most critical operations. This year, as we were planning for hiring seasonal staff, we realized that we were going to be bumping up against some vehicle limitations in terms of how many vehicles we have, wanting to make sure we didn't have staff required to share vehicles. In years prior to COVID, we would have several seasonal positions that would actually, co-share a vehicle, going out to maintain landscape beds. Some of our facility maintenance positions, our park beautification positions would all at times share vehicles. And through some careful planning and retaining a few vehicles, we were able to hire a few more staff this summer. But we've also had challenges hiring staff. No surprise, you've seen all the help wanted ads around town. But no, there's a tremendous demand for staffing right now across a lot of different employment sectors, and we're experiencing some of that same crunch. We're doing pretty well. We've got a few positions left to fill, and the news of us moving into phase 5 is timed nicely, and that we'll be able to consider having some staff share a vehicle. We're still going to encourage staff not to, and there'll be limited applications where we think we'll need to. But it comes at a time when we're looking to fill just a few more positions to get us fully staffed for the summer. So I suppose you could say the light is nearing, if not at the end of the tunnel. At least we're seeing some light, so we're encouraged by that. And like Corky said, we're also challenged with the increased level of cleaning and disinfecting that we've been doing throughout the district, but we've been able to keep on top of it thus far, and we're optimistic about that as well.
I think probably the only thing I'd want to add from a COVID standpoint is just so the board's aware of our messaging for our facilities is that you must wear a mask if you are not vaccinated or if children are present. So if you're vaccinated and children are present, you still need to wear a mask in the facility. We're not checking on people's vaccinations or not, but we are putting that message up. So I wanted the board to be aware of that. So whenever you see that, you're aware.
Starting Friday for phase 5.
Yes.
Yeah. We just felt like with all the camp kids in our buildings that don't even have access to the vaccine yet, we want to put the children's safety first. And, we all feel passionate about that and keeping our program participants safe. So if there's children nearby in your building, we ask everyone, participants or staff, anybody entering our buildings, to continue to mask. So that's the messaging that'll be going out also on social media and to staff this week. Okay, so moving on, just to kind of give each department head an opportunity to talk about any major budget items in their area. I just wanted to highlight fund transfers, and particularly the fund transfer to the Capital Improvements Fund. the board should be aware of this, but at a previous board meeting, the board committed to transfer $1 million from general fund balance out to the capital improvements fund for the future health and wellness facility. It's at the board's discretion to use it that way. If ultimately, you know, they chose to use it differently, that's fine. But at this point, that's what it's earmarked for. And I'll be making that transfer during the current fiscal year. So these other two transfers, this one happens every year. It's for our bond payments. And the money basically moves from the recreation and museum funds from the levy that, sorry, from the referendum increase that was voted by Urbana residents in 2009 and 2011. The increase in those levies now funds this bond payment. So it's through a couple of transfers, but ultimately the general fund makes that transfer to the bond fund for the payment. And then the land acquisition fund, we worked with finance committee for a long period of time. Since I've kind of been at the administration department, we've been doing a $25,000 transfer into land. But then over the past several years, we bought the properties on Main Street. And I think we bought the Grossbach property, the 2 Main Street properties. And I think there might even be another one that I'm not thinking of. And so we wound up spending all the money that we collected and then some. So we wound up thinking it might be a good idea if we increase that transfer going forward. So just in a normal year where we don't have a land acquisition parcel in sight, you know, just we'll do a transfer of 50,000 to keep it, you know, growing at a slow pace. But right now there's nothing really in that fund. We've spent all of it. So this will be the first deposit back in, and it's kind of to allow us to pick up those individual parcels here and there as we're able to. And we have other sources to do that as well if we needed to look at capital contingency or things like that if there wasn't enough in land. But you know, those are funds that are also constrained, so we try to build this up over time so that we have a source to look to if there's an opportunity. So that just covers the main transfers out of the general fund. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because this one is pretty major and unusual, and it's a one-time transfer. So we, you know, the board can evaluate that every year, but you know, this will kind of get our fund balance back down within the min and max range. And that's another reason I thought it'd be great to bring those graphs and charts to a future meeting in the near future so that you can see how that'll work. Moving on, Derek's up for this slide.
So one of the things that we budgeted for this year, and we weren't sure whether we'd be able to do it this year, obviously with some uncertainties about COVID, is a new staffing position. And this is something we've been planning for a while now. In fact, back in 2017, as we were doing preparation for the strategic plan and looking at our financial forecast and staffing needs, we did a staffing report. And in that report, we identified a need at that time for another natural aids position in the future, anticipating that some of our new areas that we're adding to our collection and restoring would be coming online. The Perkins Road site, portions of that will be coming on later this year and the balance next year. With work in Crystal Lake Park, the work that we've been doing in the saline will be coming online this year, and portions of the lake portions will be coming online in future years. And truthfully, for some time, Matt's been pretty stretched, and we've been adding more and doing more in natural areas for some time. Alongside that, within our grounds division, Georgina has been doing a lot more with native landscaping. And so areas like the bioswales at the Nature Center and pool parking lot, expanded emphasis on native landscaping around the Nature Center, the planting around MIC, those are all added to an area that she's become more comfortable with and more adept in, but she often looks to Matt for help in those areas, you know, in terms of how to manage this plant species, or I'm having a problem with this invasive species, what do I do? And Matt often lends a hand in those areas as well. And so we're anticipating that this new position would both help Matt with the new areas that are coming online and also help with our increased emphasis in native restoration, some of our landscape beds. Looking at the staff report we did in 2017, you know, we generally, you know, identified, you know, this need and anticipated that we could fulfill some of that need through hiring seasonal staff, more seasonal staff, until it came on. And In fact, we've been doing that for some time. We've been budgeting for more seasonal staff within natural areas. And if we're able to fund this position this year, we would actually not hire one of our seasonal staff positions. We've budgeted at a savings of about $7,000. And so that jump is even less than what we forecasted here. And I want to give Katie an opportunity to talk about just how the budget's looking in general in terms of our capacity to bring that position on at this time.
Yeah, I can touch on this. We had a pretty in-depth and similar conversation at the finance study group also last week. So that's kind of what we kind of wanted to review with the full board so that everybody's on board with moving forward with hiring for this position. This position's entirely budgeted in the general fund, and you will see when you get the budget book that right now the general fund, the bottom line of the general fund is it's going to be showing a decrease in fund balance of $1,120,000. $1 million of that was on the previous slide. We know that we're doing that on purpose to reduce the fund balance of the general fund to projects that we have current needs for. The other 120,000, about 100,000 of it is one-time projects, project costs or one-time expenditures. So for example, we're doing a lot of work with Fred Coleman for our WMBE work for our preferred provider program. We've been engaged with August Ball for DEI workshops and trainings. There's a lot of that in there. I actually had a list of them, just kind of going off the top of my head at the moment, but about 100,000 of it is one-time costs or project costs that could be reined in or changed over time if the need arose. So what that left and what I kind of want to express to the board is that what I'm seeing right now in the bottom line is there's about a $20,000 operating deficit that I guess what we would call a structural deficit. But in the grand scheme of things with how large the general fund is, and $20,000 isn't gonna break the bank for the general fund. And it's not necessarily the fault of this position that we have a $20,000 deficit. It's every single account line in the entire general fund that could be at fault for that, and we didn't even, that was after, even nobody's ever gone back and even looked at, well, could we balance the budget to zero there or, make it 1,100,000? We haven't even done any of that. And historically, we perform very favorably in all of our funds because our staff is conservative in their spending. So in their budgeting and their spending. So I think at least for the current year, I felt very comfortable with moving forward for hiring for this position. I think when I start looking bigger picture and longer term is when I get a little bit nervous with increases in minimum wage, uncertainties with COVID and, future revenue sources. I guess there's just a whole variety of things, the upcoming health and wellness facility and what staffing needs there may be there, and other unknown costs of operating that facility that we aren't even aware of. So there's a lot of just kind of long-term uncertainty, but I guess for me and what I hope the board understands from this slide is that the need is there. The need's been there for a long period of time. And I hope the board would feel comfortable hiring for this position this year, that, if it became a structural burden to the general fund, we'd find other ways to find savings in the district.
And Katie, as you mentioned, this has been part of our planning for some time. And again, at least a portion of that $20,000 deficit for this year would be offset by not hiring one additional seasonal position. So that further helps to make it more approachable. And looking forward at everything that's coming online, the need's already there, but it's going to be more so there in the future.
So I guess with that, I'll go ahead and move on because you're welcome to make comments at the end or at any point in time, but I'll go ahead and move on to the final topic of the slides. And it's quite a list. This covers 3 slides, but I'll let Corky talk about this slide.
Yeah, in general, I couldn't give you a rough shot. I'm not going to go through each and everything. I think the most important thing I want to get across tonight is what the Carl funds did for us last year. It was huge for our community to be able to have those dollars, which is $100,000 a year. And what we did with them this past year is how we reached our community with our boredom buster bags and our take home kits and our PPE kits, and which was fantastic, and not necessarily something we would have had the funds to really do at that level, based on where we were at with COVID. This year, I guess my main highlight, and Katie, you could scroll through them. I'm not going to talk about each one. I'm just going to talk in a big view. We've got $25,000 that's going towards outreach and wellness department as a whole. That does a lot of our Urbana stuff and our neighborhood reach activities. We've got 10,000 going to basically every other department. So athletics will get 10,000, aquatics gets 10,000, environmental programs gets 10,000, and community programs gets 10,000, and marketing gets 10,000, and all of these dollars are designed for outreach. So each program area is, as you can see by this list, is different ways that we are going to be utilizing those dollars to, impact the community. So budget-wise as a whole, I really don't have a whole lot of out of the norm type things. So I just really wanted to highlight something that's really fabulous. This is our third year with Carl. We have 2 more after this year, but it's making a big impact, and I wanted you guys to be aware of that. One other thing that's not necessarily a budget thing, but I talked, I think, a little bit at finance about it the other day, is that we are teaming up with the Diversity Research Lab at U of I again to evaluate our underrepresented study to see how well we are doing, how we're reaching different community groups, and determining what else more could be done, what's working well, what's not working well. This is the diversity research grant actually, or lab. I actually had a meeting with them that working on doing this study, and thinking we were going to have to pay for it. And it ends up they applied for 3 different projects for this one call to action grant. And preliminarily, this project's the only one that was approved. So now what they're doing is going into the full proposal. That was due yesterday, and I believe they should know if they received the grant to do this project mid-July. So hopefully we've got some new groundwork to look at how we're doing. I mean, ultimately, the Diversity Research Lab wants to take what we are doing, and that goes, I can't reiterate this enough. You've heard me say it several times, but the board's, level of buy-in on this has made a huge difference. A recreation department can't just say, hey, we want to offer this, or we want to do this. Having a buy-in from the board all the way down has really made a huge difference in this process. And one of the things that the Diversity Research Lab wants to do is put together, for lack of a better term, a blueprint for any agency to be able to start tackling violence and DEI programming. So anyhow, more to come on that. Hopefully we'll be lucky and we'll end up winning the grant, and we'll be able to take on a fresh look of our underrepresented study.
I had a quick comment because Corky missed saying that in addition to all of each individual program area, there's a $25,000 scholarship fund as well. So just want to make sure
That's the last 25,000 that I didn't mention, the scholarship fund, and that is, we use those scholarship dollars when we go into the neighborhoods, and all the kids have to do is sign up. It's not like our scholarship fund where you're awarded a certain percentage or it's based on income or anything of that nature. It's, you're here, we've got program money. What do you want? So.
And I really, when I was putting this together, I just thought it was such an impressive list coming from all of the different departments that I wanted to throw them on the screen for everyone to see, because it just got me excited about all the things and opportunities that we're going to be able to expand on with these funds. And this is year 3 of 5. So hopefully seeing all of the ways this is impacting our community, maybe, going into these final couple of years, maybe we can work on extending it. So that's the end of,
that'd be the hope.
Yeah, that's the end of our budget highlights presentation. We just want to make sure you're all aware of any big moves and allow you to ask any questions.
Any questions about the budget overview? Okay. Seeing none on that, thanks very much for that presentation, and obviously be revisiting the budget next month. Next item up is action on resolution 2021-07 and recognition of UPDEC's 50 years of service.
I can speak on this a little bit. Obviously, this came up at last month's board meeting, and got some feedback from you all on recognizing UPDEC through the new outdoor learning pavilion and kind of designating it the UPDEC Outdoor Learning Pavilion. And I rewrote it a little bit to be a little bit more plain English and talk a little bit more about UPDEC's contributions. So sent it out ahead of time for your review and comment. I did hear back, I think, from Roger, and incorporated a suggestion that he had of kind of making it 2 paragraphs, and then have brought it back for you to take action on today if there's no other comment or changes or anything like that requested.
I would just like to thank you, Kelsey, for putting this in plain English. So that,
yeah, absolutely.
So that the people being honored will have an easier time reading it.
Yeah, that's very true.
I move we approve resolution 2021-07 recognizing UPDEC's 50 years of service.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That carries unanimously. And so we will be dedicating that area of that pavilion as well. Next up is action to approve the lease agreement with Champaign County for the use of Brookins Gym.
And back on the agenda tonight is the revised lease. We have a complete copy before you tonight. Couple of highlights. Obviously, it's a favorable lease where the terms are virtually the same. We think the costs are familiar to us. One of the things I think we shared with you last month was we wanted to separate out the field use. So you'll see that in item E below that in the MOU on the field uses. So we're strictly agreeing to lease Pod 400 at the Brookins Administrative Center. And it's a 5-year lease and essentially an annual lease for 5 years. And part of our communication with the county staff is, we're in the process of fundraising for a new health and wellness facility. Obviously, at some point, if that falls into place and the schedule is cooperative, prior to that 5-year lease, we would notify them within 120 days of us leaving the facility. I think they're very favorable to that. They likely have a number of uses they would reconsider for that space. So it's been a good run there, and we're still there. We want to secure that lease this evening. But we think we can cooperatively work, and we're so fortunate to move to another location. Obviously, we can notify the county and according to the terms of the lease. Can answer any questions if you have any on the lease. We did have Matt Deering review it. Staff's reviewed it, and I think we're all promoting and recommending this.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? I mean, I just, for myself, would like to say I think this represents excellent planning, given the uncertainty of the exact scheduling of our move to a new health and wellness facility, and greatly appreciate the county's flexibility on that point, and being accommodating with allowing us to continue to use that gym pod.
Well, I move to approve the lease agreement with Champaign County for use of Brookins Pod 400.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this point? Seeing no such indication, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That carries unanimously with all 4 present commissioners voting affirmative. And next item, item E, authorizing the executive director to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Champaign County for use of the fields surrounding Brookins.
Yes, as Michael indicated, we have a document that would authorize myself and Darlene Kleppel at the county to move into an agreement to use those fields as Michael described. Again, we're very grateful for the use of that. It extends our outdoor space, and we would recommend that we approve that. I think in our discussion last month, Michael indicated that there is a exchange of services, so there is a monetary value, and the appropriate probably way to do it would be to authorize the executives to enter into the agreement.
I have a supplemental comment to that as well, just so that everybody's clear. But the previous lease had the fields and the building all in one lease. And, you know, our goal is to build a health and wellness facility and get out of the Brookins facility, but we'd like to continue to use the fields for quite a long time, you know, while we're continuing to develop our needs and, you know, analyzing our athletic fields. So I think that's why this has become a separated item.
Yes, and there's an annual review in there, so we don't get to the end of the 5 years and be like, you're out of here.
I think it's fair to say that the county's interest in reoccupying is the gym pod, not so much the areas that we're using as athletic fields, and the county benefits from the maintenance work that we do there.
Correct.
Right.
I move to authorize the executive director to sign a memorandum of understanding with Champaign County for use of fields surrounding Brookins.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions on this point? Hearing none, then we will take a roll call, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And I vote affirmatively as well, and that carries unanimously. We had no old business removed from the consent agenda, so we're ready to move on to new business. Due to the modification of the agenda, we've already handled item A. That brings us to item B, action on ordinance 2021-05, annexing property to the district.
As the board knows, it's time of the year when we look at annexations. This is, I believe, the one property that has been annexed into the city, and the board must act on this to bring that into our territory. We've reviewed that with Matt Deering. Certainly, with the documents are here. Staff recommends that the board would follow through with that.
And just so everybody understands, by right, any property that is annexed into the city, the Park District can also annex into the properties that apply to our equalized assessed value.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-05 to annex certain territory to the Urbana Park District.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or any questions on the point? Hearing none, roll call. Cedric?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. That carries unanimously. And that takes us to item C, review of draft district goals for fiscal year 2021-22.
As included in the board packet are the proposed draft goals staff has put together. Want to thank our leadership team for working on these. Obviously, we've got them. I won't go through every single item due to the length of the evening, but we do follow the structure of our strategic plan. You can see each of the areas you belong here, placemaking, the listed goals there. Health and wellness, obviously the facility and all the related activities related to it. Trails and connectivity, a huge part of what we do and touches as many places that we can. And then our last area is the operational excellence, things that we need to do, should do, must do on an annual basis. And again,
I have a
go
comment,
ahead, Katie.
Tim.
Thank you.
Last year was the first year we implemented this format. And when we brought the district-wide goals to the board said, well, why aren't there any goals under the strategic plan goal, you know? And so I actually want to share, this isn't what the full goals document looks like. Kelsey at admin office does an amazing job of consolidating all of our goals into a comprehensive document. So the goals that were presented to you in your board packet tonight are the district-wide goals, but all of the departmental goals wind up in the same document, all consolidated underneath the strategic plan goals. So you can see they're each labeled by department of who submitted them. So this first goal's outreach and wellness, this one's environmental. So this is last year's document that I have shared on the screen, but I just wanted to give you a picture that the document that was shared with you tonight isn't what, sorry, I can't get out of this unless I stop sharing. It was covering up my screen. The document that I was sharing with you tonight is just a piece of it. And so it was really an opportunity that the board, if they have any other overarching district-wide goals that aren't listed that they'd like staff to focus on to make sure your voices are heard. And then also I wanted to tell you too that we're not even necessarily done identifying all the district-wide goals. That's why these are draft goals, because once the document is fully drafted, once Kelsey's had the time to consolidate all of the goals, then the leadership team's going to review it again, and we may make some moves to elevate a departmental goal to be a district-wide goal, for example. So that's all a process that's going to occur over the next month before the budget book is finalized. So I just wanted to give you guys that background.
Also, I would add too, we do have a lot of goals, but we're really trying to encourage at least the leadership team to focus on the most important things. We have so many different areas. We need so much intense work we really have to be literally focused on the strategic goals, which we need to be and should be. But it's probably not a time to pick up a lot of new or interesting or really critical other work. There's a lot of critical work out there, but we really need to focus so we can be successful. Again, no actions needed tonight. Just wanted to share if there were any preliminary comments. Certainly we'd love to hear, and then stay tuned as we flesh this out and get it in its final format.
So any commissioner comments or questions on this? Hearing none, then we're ready to move on to action on resolution 2021-08 to accept the fiscal year 2021-22 special rec district budget.
Thank you, Michael. I just want to introduce Grace tonight. She's here with us to give us an overview. Thank you, Grace, for hanging tight the whole night. We appreciate that, and turn it over to you for any comments.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So hopefully you were all able to look over the preliminary budget that was provided by the CPD accounting department. Really, the gist of our budget this year is getting back to what a typical operating budget looks like for us in a normal fiscal year. Obviously, last year, along with everybody else, programming and operations were minimal for us. So this year, we're on track so far this summer, and anticipate that our year will be a lot more typical budget-wise and programming-wise. So that's what this year's projected budget reflects.
Just wanted to add, as much as staff tries, we would love to get all of our budget cycles just really pinpoint. We're off just enough to be able to present it this way. But as Grace said, I think these are the preliminary numbers, and things probably won't wildly change from there. So we've kind of presented it this way the last couple of years. We appreciate staff being here to provide the overview.
Yeah, CPD is on the same cycle as us, so ours isn't final till we approve it in July either. So I appreciated Andrea, kind of speeding up her process and getting us this draft so that Grace could come and talk about it.
Did want to add, I think we've shared and Grace has shared, they've moved into their new facility, trying to get that up and running, the new CUSR recreation facility over at Centennial Park. There is going to be an open house planned, and certainly invites will go out. So you'll all get a chance to go over and visit, but just wanted to mention that and thank all the staff for the hard work. We know what it's like living through construction, moving through it, moving back in, and even if it's great news and great space, still a lot of effort to pull things together. So thank you all.
And it's definitely going to be a very special addition to Special Rec having that facility.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes, I'm happy to report that we've started our summer programming there at the new facility. We've been in there for a couple weeks now with our summer camp running, and it's going really well. It's definitely a great space for us to meet our needs, and the campers are really enjoying it. So it's great to see programming back up and running a little bit more normally than it has this past year, and to be able to enjoy it in the new facility has been great so far.
Anything special you'd like us to know about the budget? Anything that's stands out to you that's, a slight concern to you?
I think everything is pretty standard across the board. As I mentioned last year, obviously costs regarding staff and programming and just general operating costs were, down or non-existent. So
yeah,
just reviewing the preliminary budget that's been proposed, it's all pretty consistent with what years prior to, our COVID year have been budget-wise.
Sure.
So nothing really that stands out significantly.
Yeah, I guess for that, I would just say kind of like what I said earlier with ours. It's just, especially with this group population that's using the facility, how comfortable are they coming back to programming, and you know, those things are unknowns at this moment.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
I move we approve resolution 2021-08 to accept the fiscal year 2021-2022 CUSR budget.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we have the proposal on the table, and I have a roll call vote, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
and I vote affirmatively as well. So you have approval from Urbana for this budget. Great.
Thank you, Grace.
Thanks, Grace.
Thanks for hanging in with us.
No problem.
Okay, we had nothing removed from the consent agenda under new business. So that brings us to more general comments from commissioners. Anybody wanting to make any comments here?
Not ice is the fly.
I'm stunned. We're all silent.
Cedric and I have been at this since 6 o'clock. We've kind of worn out our,
Okay, yeah.
I don't know what's, everything's.
All righty. Well, hey, I would just make the one comment. I'm delighted to see both our UPDAC chair hang into the end of our meeting, and also to see Sarah Nemeth come down to the bitter end on this as well. So thanks very much for hanging in there. And with that, I think we have exhausted the entirety of our agenda, and I will declare us adjourned. Good night, everyone.